Yeah, we is back with some more AI talk. Last time it was just a little teaser, but today we actually talk about AI myths. So many leaders that we've spoken to, Keenan. Keenan, where are you? Keenan?
I'm
I'm
here. I'm
dying for
here, man.
myself.
I'm
So,
here.
Keenan, I'm so super excited, man, because we really got to talk about MythBusters. And just earlier today, I was on a conversation, man, with another leader that didn't believe that AI should actually be implemented into her business. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you're not within the times, man. So today we get to talk about something special, man. AI MythBusters. And I'm pretty sure you hear this a lot as well, don't you, Keenan?
I do, man, all the time. People have these misconstrued realities, right, that we think about. And I think today's episode is perfect for that because there are a lot of myths, right, that we're believing in that just aren't true in the times these days. And so I'm looking forward to, diving into some of these common myths that we come across and kind of busting these for everybody today. So
Yeah.
what was going on with the conversation you had earlier today?
Well, she was in the therapy space, and
Hmm.
I almost felt like she was kind of a middleman to her business. And I said, so what they do is they join the queue, right? And I was like, okay, cool. They join the queue, and she finds them the better provider. And I'm like, are you using AI? And she's like, no, I don't think AI can actually do that. She started talking about HIPAA compliant, and in
Hmm.
my brain, I'm already thinking about FRANSiS, how we always have to tell somebody we're HIPAA compliant. So many people don't realize that there is security around AI, but because of Chat GPT and Claude and all these different things, they feel like there's no security barriers around this. Can you talk a little bit
Hmm.
more about it, Keenan? You've been in this space, you run an AI business.
Yeah, man. Let's start with the security element, right? So, beautiful thing is that technology is always progressing, right? But it also security is always progressing as well. And I totally understand where people are coming from and saying like, "Hey, there's no way AI can be secure because where is our data going?" Right? And so, this is one of the biggest things that I always talk about. If you're going to explore an AI tool, you need to note that the infrastructure and the security behind your actual tool is legit, meaning HIPAA compliant, SOC 2 certified, and your data is not being used to cross train any other type of model. Just as a little story, we actually work with one of the nation's largest healthcare systems, and we had to go through an extensive security audit. And one of the biggest risks that it came down to, it was kind of boiled down into a single point. They said, where is our data being stored? Are you giving our
Mm.
data to a place like OpenAI and ChatGPT? And what we said was absolutely not. We're actually housing your information in what we call your own AI box. For everybody who's technical out there, it's called a RAG, a retrieval augmented generation layer, right? It's basically, I want you to think about this as like a digital filing system where all of your data stays inside the system and is not used to go into OpenAI, into ChatGPT. Being able to protect your data, man, is super, super important. But you need to make sure that the infrastructure of the tools that you guys use is compliant. And a lot of people over the last couple months and couple of years have been building systems that have not been secure. And so being able to speak to some of that stuff gives a lot of the leaders I speak to and you speak to as well, a lot of security and knowing that the information they're sharing is safe. But you have to take things like patient experience, patient data, patient information, PHI, incredibly serious, man. That's a huge topic that we should really dive in a little bit deeper into.
I mean, really, let's get to some more of these myths. I love what you're talking about. You've obviously been in the space for so long and just healthcare in general, so you understand security anyway. You didn't come here with a blind eye, and I think that's what really kind of gives you the up on others that are just kind of get into this business. You understand this more than anybody. There's so many new businesses out there that wanted to give AI, but not the way that you're providing AI. But that's a whole nother conversation. We'll talk about FRANSiS a different time, but I really want to talk about these mythbusters, man. The first one, AI will never replace our human touch, which respectfully so, I do 100% agree when people say this to me. But can we talk a little bit more? AI will replace our human touch. What is your thoughts on that?
I mean, well, we see this a lot because we work in the health and human services space. And a lot of organizations who we support are mission focused, meaning we love the human touch, we appreciate the human connection, and we don't want technology to mitigate against that. But let's kind of talk about where this experience comes from. And I always have to throw stones, if you will, at the use of things like chat bots. So when you hop onto a website, the first thing you normally see is a widget in the bottom right hand corner. As soon as you click that widget, there are 5 options that pops up. Do you want support? Do you want to talk to sales? Do you need information about our services? XYZ, right? And so when you engage with those systems, the one thing I always talk about is human behavior today wants answers when they want it, and they want to be able to ask any type of question. And when you engage with something like a chat bot, as an example, people normally find themselves incredibly frustrated. And what do they end up doing, Efrain? They end up screaming representative as loud as they can into their phone, or let me talk to somebody,
Yep.
right? Everybody wants the human connection. And so when we talk about being able to use technology to enhance the human connection, it means giving people good information from a trusted resource on their terms. And so we always talk about it's not eliminating the human touch, but if technology is positioned appropriately, it creates a more humane experience. Meaning, if Efrain is worried about something, if Keenan has a thought at 11 o'clock at night, I can't reach out to an organization because they don't have phone centers normally 24/7. They don't have staff waiting around. But what they do have is the ability to answer questions and give you guidance. And so I look at technology as being the ability to give us good information at our fingertips when we need it from a trusted resource, and then escalate to a human counterpart when appropriate, man.
And we've actually heard that recently in a conversation that me and you were both in, where what they send their call people or phone people home at 1 o'clock, but really operating till 5. And then on the weekend, there's more, so that on Monday you have to take staff from another department to, so let's really think about it. We'll get to that one in just a bit, but it's happening. We hear these conversations all the time. So when we're saying that, well, we don't really need it, we're actually seeing, no, there's a huge need on how AI could be that you like to call it that virtual employee. What is the exact word you like to use?
So I like to say, we have to think about what the digital workforce of our organization is going to look like. You're going to have in the future, very soon, if not already, digital team members who can be personified and present themselves as a helper in the organization, who are there to answer questions and then hand off those phone calls to a human team member when it truly counts. And so those digital team members, man, especially with all the pressure in the job market, recruiting, retention, are becoming more and more relevant today, more so than ever been.
I love it, man. How about donor engagement? AI in the space of donor engagement. Do you see how does that work out? Like, people don't use AI in that space, but when we're talking about out of sight, out of mind, it's happening a lot. Organizations are leaving money on the table for these reasons. Can we talk about a little bit more on that as well?
Dude, let's talk about donor engagement's a great use case that we always help our organizations with, because at the end of the day, if you're a nonprofit, as an example, you have to be able to raise money to help you accomplish your mission. There was a conversation I was listening to with a couple leaders, and they were a large religious institution run by a whole bunch of nuns, and there were nuns on the board. And one of the things that they were talking about, if there's no money, there's no mission. And so you have to be able to let people know how they're affecting and contributing to your mission. So one of the things that we always do, like you said, out of sight, out of mind, is use our platform to be able to send personalized messages out to our donor pools for advancement and development, to help people know how they're contributing to our mission, how they can help us accomplish our goals, how they can attend certain events that are coming up in the community, so they can show up and create a more human experience and coming together to stand behind some of these amazing missions in these communities, man. And so it's like donor involvement is incredibly important, man.
You mentioned the word nonprofit. This leads me to the next myth that we'll be talking about. But AI is too expensive for nonprofits. Keenan, how can they actually afford this?
So here's the question. What is more expensive? Is investing into technology that continuously gets better more expensive, or losing team members who are doing repetitive, redundant, and sometimes joyless work, and you lose them because they go find a job down the street for 25 cents more because they're not enjoying their work, more expensive? We always have to think about, how are we investing into the future of our organizations? I can't tell you how many nonprofit leaders I speak to today who are in health and human services, mental health, substance use, who are constantly saying, we're having incredibly tough times recruiting this next generation of helpers to come into this space. Why? Because we do have a lot of distractions out there like TikTok and Instagram, and everybody wants to be a unicorn leader. But unfortunately, you can't do those things in a lot of communities. And so we have to be able to use this technology to be an accelerator for our mission. And I can't think of anything better than letting people know they can reach out to us to get support 24/7, 365, and continue to be supported by technology. And the human is always in the loop throughout that process. So I think, man, you just have to think about where you're investing and think about these things on a longer time horizon.
Yeah. And for anyone that's watching right now, whether you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, I think we're on different platforms right now, feel free to put those questions in. We're here to answer them. Maybe we don't have all the answers, but we're going to try our best. If not, we're going to come back next time with all the right answers. That's just who we are. And I love that we're in this space of nonprofit, because that is a lot of the leaders that we speak to, and we kind of see both sides of the spectrum. We see those that truly see how this works for them, and we also see the ones that says it's too expensive. And you've really cleared a lot of the myths behind, is it really too expensive? But we also feel that it truly does, as you mentioned a little earlier, it truly does help us that use AI do more of the things that we love. And then we've seen in the healthcare industry. So I know we talked about nonprofit, but the healthcare industry took a huge hit because people just felt overworked, overwhelmed. What happened if in 2020 we actually had AI and all that admin tasks that was being done by these nurses were actually being, you know, on its own transcribed by just having the conversation. Now I think we're seeing more of that, but it did hurt the healthcare industry a lot. Like that's why people left, because they felt like, hey, I can't do the things that I love mostly. So you know what? I'm going to find something else that just makes me happy and brings me a little bit more peace and joy. And usually it's something around AI.
I mean, isn't it sad to hear that though? I mean, you have a certain demographic of people who go into healthcare because they're compassionate about helping others.
Mhm.
And this is a personal experience. I have a loved one who was in the healthcare space. She went through her education process. And as soon as she got her job in healthcare, she was like, hold on, I've been trained to be compassionate, to be empathetic. But the one thing that my healthcare organization is telling me to do is make sure I get all my documentation done. So they have a huge clerical I
Mhm.
would say, burden, right, to be able to get all their notes done. And here's some stats for you, and everybody else who's out there listening as well. On average, in a healthcare environment, let's say primary care, your doctor spends about 5 minutes with you in the interaction face to face, listening to your problems and helping you navigate a challenging time. But they spend 15 minutes documenting that interaction. Now, one of the things that I always say with our team is you change the incentive, you change the outcome. The way in which our healthcare systems work today is you have to get your documentation done in order to get reimbursed for the service that you leverage. And so that is where AI, dictation systems, note summary systems have become so prominent because they're
Mhm.
helping their team members, the therapist, the doctor, the nurse, the NP, the physician assistant, dictate what happened in the environment. And those notes are summarized to take away a lot of the back and forth noting in every single field inside of their EMR, but it's creating better work-life balance for them. I actually recently was talking to my co-founder who lives in Las Vegas, Alexa. You guys have probably seen her on LinkedIn. She was saying, I'm going over to my friend's house to watch Monday Night Football, and I'm taking my laptop with me. And I was like, why are you taking your laptop with me? She said, well, my friend's wife is an NP, and she's going to be doing all of her documentation while we're watching the game because that's how she gets paid. And so it gives me a reason to do it. As soon as she got there, they had a conversation about they're not going to be doing the documentation because they want to enjoy spending time with the people who they love.
Yeah.
And so we need to think about these tools, man, as not only a way to build better culture, but a way to create, I would say, an emphasis and prioritization on the things that are truly important. And that means creating that work-life balance, I guess, which is in direct contrast to the hustle culture that healthcare has come
Mhm.
up with over the last couple of years, man.
I also, when I sit here and think about it, you've recently sent me a book, Buying Back Time.
Mhm.
AI literally helps buy back time. And we're both in the spaces where we're using AI, and truly it does help us get more creative, allows us to think a little faster, and get just more work done. You talk about work-life balance. I tell you what, I was in I went to the doctor and my wife was like, "Yeah, this is my doctor." I'm like, "Cool." So I went and I'm just a talkative person. So I'm like, "Hey, you seen my wife?" and blah, 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 blah. The lady's not looking at me. She's like, "Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay." Mm-hmm. And then, so whatever. I just realized she didn't want to talk to me, but she was taking notes or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I go outside and I say, "Yeah, the lady was in there. She looked like this." My wife was like, "That's not my doctor." So the lady lied to me and says, "Oh yeah, I remember her." But the thing is, not that she lied. She
Interesting.
was just so focused on what she was doing that
Yeah.
everything else didn't matter. And when we talk about family doctors, it don't even exist anymore because now they have so much work that they need to do. So I think that's where AI, and I seeing a lot of hospitals and doctors talking about it though, that they are starting to implement a lot of this AI, which is cool. I think that it will bring back the family doctors. It will bring back I think service. Today actually we had two different places we had to look at for a gala, and it was Eventbrite
Mhm.
and Teach Ticks or something like that. The reason we chose the other company was service. A lot of people don't realize service is big, and when you can actually have AI in places that and provide great service from human to human,
Yep.
that you will always win. So as she's telling me he was so good, he called me, Efrain, he answered all my questions, he this, he that. And I asked her, "Do you think Eventbrite will give us that kind of experience, customer service?" She's like, "No." I said, "Then I think we found who we want." AI allows us to give the service that people are wanting and letting everything on the back end actually work on its own. So I love the space of AI, man. We'll talk about another myth as well. So down two so far, you're answering really good questions here, man. The third one is AI doesn't understand our mission though. Like, how does it actually help?
I mean, so this is a misconception as well, or a myth that needs to be busted. So one of the things that we do in working with community-based organizations, right, is our AI has to understand their mission, their values, and what they emphasize in the human interaction. And so this is what you can do with a lot of systems. And this is a little bit different from things like ChatGPT, is you can actually train these models, if you will, on your values, on your mission, on the organization history. So every single time that your AI generates an answer or answers a question, it's going to speak in your brand voice. And so if you're using an off-the-shelf tool like ChatGPT as an example that's been trained on the world's organizational data, it's going to make some assumptions about what you guys do. But if you're more intentional about using a system like FRANSiS that is trained on your organization's information, it's always going to keep those things in the front of its mind, or its digital brain, if you will, when answering those questions. And so this is some of the things that really help us communicate this to our partners. When you set up an AI, you have the ability to adjust tone, tenor, and characteristics in how it communicates. So if being empathetic is something important in your organization, you can train it to be that way. If you want to train it to be validating or motivational, you can do all of those things as well. It's all about how you set up the parameters of your system so it communicates in your brand voice. And you can train these the exact same way that you would train a human team member to always emphasize, we are compassionate here, we are motivational, we are validating, we listen first. You can train these systems the exact same way. And so what you can really do is train a digital team member who echoes those things in every single element of how it communicates your services and the value to your community as well. And I think a lot of people get that lost in the hustle because they're like, ChatGPT doesn't know me, right? OpenAI doesn't know who I am. So you have to train your systems a little bit differently to make sure that they always emphasize who exactly you are. And you can do that right out of the box.
I'll tell you what, man, I use ChatGPT a lot. You know, you're a Cloud guy, I'm a ChatGPT guy.
I'm
And when
getting you to
people,
change that too.
I know you tell me all the time, but what I love about ChatGPT, maybe because I haven't used Cloud, okay, I'm a very loyal person. ChatGPT was the first person I found.
Yeah.
And what I love and what I've done, and I always laugh when people do not use it to its full potential. It's creating the brain, kind of, that you mentioned. So when it gives me responses, I allowed it to understand how I speak, how I want the output to be. I wanted to be very conversational. I mean, I've gotten someone that is $1 million company. I wrote a newsletter on LinkedIn.
Yep.
It was literally taking a transcript, plugging it in, and the way that I would talk. And I obviously cleaned it up a little bit, and I've posted it. The dude loved it. And he says, wow, Efrain, the way that you were able to tell the story, I love that. And I didn't lie. I said, hey, this was ChatGPT, but I prompted it to give me these results. A lot of people actually have the tools in front of them, but are not actually learning how to navigate them. You could literally learn ChatGPT through ChatGPT. That's how crazy it is. But people don't take that. They just think that it's going away, but it's been here. This AI is just a word that we use now, but in reality, it's always been something we've been using. And we talked about text prediction, one of the AI tools that we have. How does your phone know what to send you when it comes to ads? It's all AI in the back end.
Yeah.
People
I mean,
don't know.
I saw Gary V, if anybody's familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk out there, talking about this the other day in a little keynote. And he was like, guess what? We no longer have the privilege of acting like AI is not going to impact you and your business. If you are an HVAC company, if you are a healthcare leader, if you are a part of a mission-based organization, if you're a part of a flight instructor school, AI is becoming a part of your everyday world. And so you need to start getting used to it. Because I'm 34, I'll be 35 this month, right? I've had the privilege of seeing a little bit of time now. This feels very familiar to people back in the day, early 2000s, and saying, oh, the internet's a fad. Why would I do those things? But now, as we sit in 2025, the internet is literally in everything that we touch, and AI is going to be the exact same way. The choice is, how are you going to be able to integrate it into your world and make it as effective as possible for you? Because it's different for everybody, man. But it's a lateral layer that's going to go across all business and our lives.
Another one that I thought about, Gary Vee, I recently seen this one, is people are so afraid of AI and it take away jobs and XYZ. But what he was saying is it's going to create so many jobs around AI that you don't even know exist yet.
Mhm.
And one of his things that he brought up was, I remember when I first started my career and I had a videographer following me and people thought I was crazy. But how many people now have that job of really recording someone and following them around the world?
Yeah.
Right? That's just the space that we're in. Technology is changing. The way that we show up is changing. The way people consume content is changing, and a lot of it is going to be around AI, to be quite frank. I love this, man. I love this, and we don't have too much time to really dig into all of it, but we'll be doing this. Right now, we're starting off, so maybe every other week, maybe once a month, but we'll definitely get a clear schedule so you guys can have these conversations around AI. And if you guys feel like you want a topic, if you have a topic you want covered, maybe that people are not talking about enough, let us know. We love to talk about AI and bring this to the forefront because it's only growing from here. This is truly the beginning stages. People have to be patient. People have to adapt and get comfortable with what's next, right? And there's so much that's on the horizon. So let's talk about another one though. AI isn't secure enough for our data.
Yep. So once again, we kind of touched on this in the very beginning, but it's like there are different ways in which you can build these systems, right? Very similar to how when we first got started with email, as an example, people always use the same password for every single system that they logged into. And as internet security became more important, people started changing their passwords for all these different type of tools and access to log in. When you think about how you're going to upload your system or your data and your proprietary information into a system, you have to make sure that that system is secure. And so there are so many things that you can leverage, like HIPAA compliance, SOC 2 certification, data encryption. There are many different protocols that you can implement that help make sure that your data is secure. And it's on the vendor or the tool that you are using to make sure that that information is secure. And some of their terms and conditions need to be aligned with what your mission standards are. And so when I think about our data isn't secure enough, that is a huge myth, because as we grow into 2025, 2026, IT security, more important than ever. We've seen data breaches all over the place. You do not have the ability to align yourself without or with a organization or a tool that is not compliant and is not secure. And so I always encourage every single person who is exploring these tools to make sure that your vendor has SOC 2 certification, they've got HIPAA compliance if you're in healthcare, and they have all the different encryption levels that are necessary to keep your data protected. Because the one thing we cannot afford is to let somebody else have our proprietary information and to benefit off of our expertise and our own IP.
You're expert in this, man. You've been doing this 10 plus years. You have all
Man,
the answers
I have all
that we
these
need.
conversations all day, man. You know what I mean? So it's
I
important to
love
make
it.
sure you got all of your documentation in a row, because
So,
you need to make sure people are
so
comfortable.
think about this sense, right? When people have the product, you talk about different vendors. They are usually maybe a plug and play or maybe another standalone tool or things like that. When we talk about, someone just mentioned to me earlier, I have HubSpot and I want to integrate AI and some of the different tools. Is that possible?
So that is possible. So one thing that is that has been possible in the past, and this is going to be me nerding out a little bit, is there have been APIs that have been built. An API basically is a standard protocol for connection. I want you to think about your home and how you have female sockets sitting inside the wall, right? These
Mhm.
companies have built female sockets, and you build an API endpoint or a male insertion point where you can connect into those systems. Now, one of the things that's becoming incredibly exciting for
I mean,
me
what you're doing
that
with your fingers, I kind of look a little funny. I don't, we got
I'm
to see
sorry.
this.
Everything's connected, right? Everything's connected. You know what I'm saying? One of the things I think is really cool about connections today is the tool that we talked about a little bit earlier that me and my team use, and Efrain is using more and more every single day, is called Claude, by a company called Anthropic. They actually created something called an MCP, which is a standard API for how AI is going to connect into these different tools. It stands for Model Connection Protocol. Salesforce,
Mhm.
HubSpot, all these different large players have all started using it as a standard connection, meaning that AI is now going to be able to connect to all of these different systems without the additional build of custom APIs, which means that they are preparing for the future, Efrain, because they know AI is going to be everywhere and they need a common language of how these tools are going to connect to themselves. And so MCP has become more and more prominent over how tools connect to each other, the investment that big companies are making into how AI is going to connect into their systems, because they recognize they have to have a standard, has to be secure. And that's been the way that people have been tackling that integration data flow conversation recently. And I'd love to hear if anybody else is starting to touch on MCPs and how you guys are using those tools as well.
Yeah, guys, if you guys have any questions as we're going through some of these myths, or you have your own opinions, feel free to put those into the comment section as well. We will be posting those onto the screen and engaging with those conversations. But I'll take you to the next myth, man. A lot of people don't have, especially nonprofits, don't have a huge IT department. So they say AI is not for us because we're not tech savvy. We just don't have the team behind it. And in reality, you don't need to have a 10-person IT team. And instead, you actually need what, Keenan?
You need a good tool that understands what your problems are. And so, of course, you can try and boil the ocean, right? But if you take a small pot of water and start with specific use cases, you can be a lot more effective. And so, one of the things that we do at FRANSiS is we help organizations utilize text messaging to connect and create better opportunities for access and engagement. So, what we do is we work in small use cases, we tackle one problem at a time, and we leverage simple technology. And so if you think about the people, and I'm going to use the example of behavioral health, right? Mental health and substance use. Not everybody has a new iPhone in their pocket. Some people have flip phones, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to be supported by your guys' technology
Or
stack.
we just have a Galaxy. I mean, I'm
Or
not
you
an
have a
iPhone type of guy.
Galaxy
You know
and
what I mean?
you're one of those guys, you know. That's why all your text messages are green, man. I knew something was going on.
No wonder you
But
hate texting me. You're literally would text me on Zoom versus actually texting me. I
I
don't know what's
know
wrong with your
exactly.
iPhone users.
Yeah, but the way in which we approached it, man, is if we're going to get everybody into the game of technology, we need to start in building blocks that people can understand. Now, from my 11-year-old niece to my 92-year-old grandmother, guess what they both have in common? They both know how to text. Both of them don't know how to use apps, log into portals, or use sophisticated software. And so, one thing that we do is we position our technology as a simple tool that helps them solve challenges and increase access to good information and support. There's no apps, there's no downloads, there's no nothing like that. And it creates opportunities for impact immediately rather than expecting for the world to catch up to your sophisticated ideas of what AI is going to mean. And I think that that's what a lot of leaders can do for themselves today is think about how this technology impacts your world today and don't buy into the vision of what Silicon Valley says you're supposed to do with AI, because a lot of organizations think that that's a barrier to entry and they can't even get into the game, which couldn't be more false.
Yeah. And good data, right? That's really another part of utilizing AI is that you have to have good data. We talked about the input to the output, but as an organization, all the data that you've accumulated, the CRMs, the emails, all that, if you have great data, you'll have a great system. That's another thing. People think I just want to buy this system, but why is it not working out for me?
Mm.
It's data.
Yeah, I mean, I hear it all the time. We use the analogy garbage in equals garbage out, right? These systems are only as good as you are in training them. And so you need to make sure that you're giving them good data. I can't tell you how many leaders I've spoken to over the recent years who say, "Hey, we just got our website redone. We spent $40,000, $50,000 to have our website redone. All the information's accurate." And I say, "Great. Now you're in an amazing position to get started in using AI because
Mhm.
what you're publishing to the public is what your AI is going to understand just like anybody else would." And so making sure your data is in line is a fundamental building block in making sure that these tools are successful.
So that kind of brings the website situation. What have you seen when you're working with organizations and you go and take data off their website? You start to see also some things that don't add up, right? So you guys are really unique because not only do you guys bring this tool to this organization that allows them to reach out in so many different ways, but you also work with them on letting them know, hey, this data that you think is correct is not correct. Can we talk a little bit more on that?
Yeah, man. So we almost find, I use the analogy that we're only a mirror of what you give us. And so one of the things that we do is we go through a testing process, as you always should with AI, with our
Mhm.
partners. And we say, hey, we want you to ask questions of your AI, of your FRANSiS, if you will. And they say, it's not answering these questions correctly because it's saying that this is our address, but that's not our address. This is our new updated address. And so one of the things that we actually find is when you implement AI, it almost works as a really transparent audit tool. Because if you give the AI bad data, it will get confused the same way that your customers from the outside coming in are saying, this is a service that you guys are having, but it says that that's no longer available, XYZ. You have to make sure all of your information is completely appropriate. I see we got Luther Brewster in the chat right now. He just asked a question. Hey, Lou, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining us. He said, what logical steps to bring your team and organization along in developing a moral AI forward approach work? What should we do first? So when we talk about morals, one of the things that I think is
Real
appropriate.
quick, Keenan, are you
Yeah,
able to pin that? If you click on it, pin it
yeah.
onto the screen so people can
Let me see
see
if I can
exactly
do
what the AI
that.
is. So right where that message is at, if you just kind of hover over it, you should just hit plus, and it should just add to the screen.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Here we go. Oh yes, here we go. Show.
There
Beautiful.
we go.
Awesome. Luther Brewster, thanks for coming in, man. And thanks for giving me the IT support I need for this,
You know what I'm
Efrain.
saying? Listen, he's good at AI. He's not good at IT. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah,
why I'm
there you
here.
go.
That's why
That's
I'm
exactly right. I mean, at the end of the day, what we have to do is we have to recognize what challenges we're truly solving, right? And what demographic we're truly solving them for. So when you come up with your, I would say, moral approach to using AI, it's super important. I always want to talk about this through the lens of positioning, right? Whenever you want to be transparent and using AI in your organization, it's important to position AI is exactly as that. So one of the things that I've heard through a lot of my conversations with leaders is we used an AI tool, but we disguised it as something that was supposed to be a human. And when people found out it was an AI, we lost trust. And so one of the things that we talk about today is how we position AI is really important. So the first message in somebody interacting with the system, they should know that they're speaking to an AI and that a human team member is in the loop and they can always support them. One of the biggest fallacies that people think is that we're going to replace all jobs with AI. I actually called the USPS, the Postal Service, this morning. And the first thing that I came across was an AI voice that said, "Hello, I'm here to help you." And the first thing that I shouted was, "Let me speak to a representative because I need to talk to a human." And so as things like technology and voice AI get better and better, it's always important to recognize that we position them as a helper to get people good information. And I think a lot of organizations are going to make that mistake. I even got an email this morning about an SDR. It's like, "Hey, we can stand up a full AI SDR for you." And I thought to myself, I don't know what role an AI SDR is supposed to play in my sales process, but I want to know that it's here to do certain things. It's positioned in a certain way. And there's always a human that I can speak to as well. Because you talked about this early in our conversation, Efrain, which was we need to make sure that the human is always in the experience, exactly like what you talked about with your organization and finding your gala. We want the human connection more so than ever. The technology just needs to be an accelerator.
Correct. I love that. I love that. If you click on it again, Keenan, it will go away.
There we
Thank you,
go.
Luther, though, for the question, man. If you guys have any questions, as Luther just did, we're here to answer them, right? But let's talk about the next myth. We actually have only one more myth, so make sure you guys are asking questions. AI will lose, and we kind of talked about this a lot, but the sixth myth is AI will make us lose donors and clients.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of talked a little bit about it. If we could just kind of share a little bit more on statistics. You talked about text message open rates, email open rates. Like, let's give them numbers because a lot of people think that we're just talking BS, but no, we're talking facts.
Hey, man. I mean, when I was growing up, I remember I would say OGs from the earlier generations always making fun of me and saying, "Hey, you guys don't know how to have conversations anymore. You guys can't have a face-to-face interaction." And one thing that I think is important, instead of resisting what that trend looks like, especially for younger generations, we need to embrace that. And that means giving them optionality. And so the one thing I know is that when I look around in society, everybody's paying attention to their phone more than ever. They don't always answer phone calls and they sure don't respond to emails. But one thing that's powerful about text messages is you get a 99% open rate compared to only 20% of emails. Text messages themselves are opened within the first 3 minutes of them being delivered. I can't say the same about phone calls because we're always busy. And so when you think about creating a better experience, a humane experience, people want their information when they want it. And that means being able to respond in a moment's need. If I'm on a lunch break and I want to ask a question of a trusted resource, I should get a response immediately. I shouldn't fill out a contact form. I shouldn't play phone tag. I shouldn't have to say, "Oh, hold on, they're calling me back," and take myself away from the conversations I'm having. Being able to create a more personal touch through technology is something that a lot of more organizations need to lean into. And I think that's a big opportunity as we move into the future.
But we hear this all the time. Yeah, well, this generation may use texting, but the older generation, they're not really tech savvy. They don't know how to, I guess, text. But let's be honest, man. You got numbers for us, man? Is it? I think that's actually a good example. Actually, you maybe not have numbers on this, but you do have a good example. You mentioned earlier about your grandma and your
Because
niece
of the
age gap.
pandemic, we saw a huge explosion in older adults in the United States getting comfortable with technology. Because if you think about, I would say April, June, July, August of 2020, we were all confined to ourselves and we were all isolated. How do we stay in touch with our family members? Everybody got comfortable FaceTiming. Everybody got comfortable hopping on Zoom, and more people got comfortable from an older demographic perspective, texting every single day. I've even heard Lou Brewster talk about, one of the ways in which I text my family or contact my family is actually to text with them back and forth. We need to use the technology that people have at their fingertips and they're comfortable using. As technology continues to grow and preferences continue to shape in front of us, more people are going to become more comfortable with this technology. And don't think that the older generation has been left behind. They had to get with the times because of the pandemic and all the other life experiences that we've gone through as well. And so we've seen tremendous growth, man, in the older demographics using text messages.
So to kind of put a bow on this is that you need to stop being comfortable with the way that it used to be and get uncomfortable so you can learn the way that we're going. Because AI is not going away. The way we communicate is not going away. And that you've developed something that people can just at their fingertips, whether it's from the external use or even internal use, which is your staff and how we communicate. Because let's be honest, a lot of times we need that policy. We need that information and we don't want to go ask that person because we don't want to go talk to that person, whatever that case may be, that I can actually just text in and get that accurate information. One thing when I used to work in the airline industry, I think it's funny that what you've developed is so cool and gives you accurate and all the information. Because I'll tell you, we used to have parents come in and call in and says, hey, I'm traveling for the first time and I'm traveling with my infant. Is it possible that I can actually bring a car seat? And, some people respond, yeah, of course you could bring a car seat. And then that's it. They hang up. Now, this is a mom that's probably all scattered brain or father all scattered brain. Then they'll call back an hour. Oh my God, I forgot asking about the formula. And then they'll go and, hey, how about formula? And then, yeah, you can bring formula. Oh, okay, cool. And then, oh my God, I forgot about the stroller. But what you guys have done is literally give you all accurate information, not missing anything, and letting them know, hey, continue to message us at any single time, and we're here for you. That's how good this is. It's better than that human that sometimes don't really love their job. They're just there for a paycheck. Yeah. What's cool about AI doesn't work for a paycheck. AI works for you. The more that you train this AI, the more you love and care for this AI, it will continue to love and care for people the way that you love and care for people. You talked about the building, the tone, the brand, all that is on the back end, and people don't realize it's not just AI. This is I love to say it's your own. If you use ChatGPT or you use Copilot, it is your own Copilot on steroids. Okay. So I love what you guys are doing at FRANSiS, man. And unfortunately, we don't have any more myths, but I think that we had a great conversation and in hopes that people can realize that they're holding themselves back when they believe a lot of these things that people are saying. It is up to us to go and educate others, but you also have to educate yourself. So we are doing the education so people don't have to do so much research, but it's also up to them as you're looking for different partners, as you're looking for different AI companies to kind of help you in the amount of work that you're doing. Or if you're saying, hey, I can't hire people, right? Well, guess what? You can definitely invest a little bit into AI and take a company that may feel like 20. Now it's running like it's 30, 40 people, So I love it, man. What's up next, Keenan? What are some of the things that we'll be experiencing conversation wise with you, my brother?
I mean, we're going to talk about applicable use cases that are practical today that you guys can start seeing a return on your investment. But one of the things that we want to do with this live stream format, right, is to be able to answer the questions and talk about the topics that you're interested in. Because I know you as an individual have different interests. You as an organization have different priorities. And so as you guys look at these chats, as you guys watch these live streams, always feel free to drop comments and give suggestions for our next episodes, because we want to make sure that this is as valuable as possible for you. So if you're thinking about challenges you want to solve, if you're thinking about use cases that you want to implement, we will do the research, we'll bring good information back to you guys and give you guys real life examples on how people are executing on these things today. And so I always encourage you guys to be as participant as possible. We're super excited to continue these conversations. Efrain is going to continue to bring the energy. I'm going to continue to bring a little bit of the expertise and all the things that we've been doing over the years. And I'm excited to keep these conversations going, man. But this is a great start, and we'll just continue making this show happen, and we'll continue providing value.
And guys, as we continue to wrap up, remember that we just want to explore AI and how it may fit your business. We're not asking, this is like no pressure conversation. There's no sales pitch. It's truly just educating you around the space of AI, making you feel more comfortable. So when that next person calls you and says, hey, I have this tool, that you have a little bit more knowledge and you have the right questions to ask. So I love it. Keenan, we thank you so much for your time. People don't know Keenan right now is what, 7 o'clock in the damn morning where you're at?
Yeah, it's 7:39 in the morning here. We're covering both of
Are
the
you even
far
real right now,
coasts.
man? Are you even
I'm real.
real? Is you AI? Is
I'm
you
a real
awake?
person. I'm a real person, man. But we got every coast covered, man. Efrain's hosting us over here from Orlando, and I'm calling in from Honolulu, Hawaii. So we've
I
got
love
everything
it.
covered
And
for you
that's what
guys, man.
technology can do, guys. That's what technology can do, and so much more when you implement AI. My name is Efrain. This is Keenan. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Take it
Laters.
easy. Bye.